G'day everyone. In my last video, when I went up to Lancelin Sand Dunes, I captured my last image using a technique called focus stacking. That's where I took a series of shots with the camera focused at various points throughout the scene to make the final image. Now, I received a few comments in that video asking me whether I could show how I merged the sequence of shots to make the final image. And so that's what we're going to do today. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you need a website, a domain, or an online store, make your next move with Squarespace. Now, the reason you might want to consider focus stacking is when you want to extend your depth of field, the region within your image that you want in focus. Now, we know that we can do that by increasing the f-stop to f14 or f16, but much higher than that, and you start to introduce diffraction, which is an optical effect that is caused by light going through quite a small aperture and being bent, and as a result being diffracted. What happens for your image is that you start to lose a little bit of detail and it starts to get a little bit soft and not as sharp as you might want. Another way of ensuring you have sharpness all the way through your image is by taking a series of shots with the focus point of your camera positioned at various points throughout your image, and then blending those images together in post-processing using the sharpest parts of each of the images. The process of merging those images together is really easy, but before I show you, let's take a quick trip back to the sand dunes and I'll show you how I took the original shots.
I thought I was done, but in actual fact I wasn't, because I got back close to the car and there's this gorgeous snaking ridge up to another sand dune. So I've set myself up and I'm going to have a lot of foreground in my image. In fact, it's going to be quite close to the camera, as well as the peak off in the distance. So I'm not going to be able to capture it with one shot. So I've reduced my f-stop down to 8, which gives me a shutter speed of 20, although the light is disappearing quite quickly. I'm still on ISO 100. So what I've done is I've moved my focus point quite close to the bottom of the image. It's only around about 1 to 1.5 meters into the image. I've taken that shot. I've then moved the focus point up into the middle of the shot, again just on that S-curve, to take another shot. Then I've moved it all the way to the top of the sand dune in the background and taken my third shot. And what I'll do is I'll merge those images with different focal planes together as the one image. That allows me to get a really sharp image from the foreground right to the background by focus stacking those images. Let's see how it turns out.
To see my entire video of my landscape trip up to Lancelin, I'll link the video here and also in the description below. By the way, if you're new to my channel and you enjoy landscape photography, please consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any of my upcoming landscape trips. If you do subscribe, make sure you hit the notification bell so you're notified when I upload my next video. We're now over 20,000 subscribers here on the channel, which is pretty exciting. If you have a new Nikon D850, Nikon has added a feature called focus stacking, where you can set up the number of images you want the camera to take, and it will work out where to focus and will take the images for you automatically. I haven't upgraded to the D850, but as you can see, it's not all that difficult to focus stack a scene manually. Regardless of whether you've focus stacked the scene with a D850 or any other camera, you're still going to have to go through the process of merging those images in post. So let's get started. So here we are with the 3 shots that I took out at the sand dunes. The first one is where the image is in focus in the foreground. The second is where the image is in focus in the midground. And the third one is the background in focus, but you'll be able to see that in a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the middle one And we're just going to do a basic adjustment just quickly. Just before I do that, I'm going to come down, as I usually do, down to lens correction and hit the chromatic aberration and the profile correction option. Now if I go back up here, we'll see what Lightroom suggests as a good white balance. I do this because it's usually a pretty good starting point. So if I go auto tone, and with the white balance I could go daylight. It's probably a little bit too much magenta there. I could decrease the magenta. It's looking a little bit better. Just give cloudy a bit of a look. Yeah, that's a bit too orange. So I might go back to auto, and that's looking pretty good. I might just increase the temperature just a fraction to around about there. It looks good. I'm going to zero out vibrance. I do that quickly by double clicking the label like that, and saturation as well. I don't want any saturation at this stage. And that's pretty much it. I'm not going to do anything else. Now what I want to do is synchronize the edits that I've done in this image with the other two images. So to do that, I make sure that the image that I'm editing is selected like it is, and then on a Mac you hold down the command key and select the other two, and then you come over on the right hand side here, there's the sync button, and you can click sync. We may as well check all and then synchronize. And now we've got the edits that I've done to the middle one right across all of the images. So the purpose of the video is to show you how we merge or blend these stacked images into one image. So let's do that now. To do that, I select all the images like they are. I right click on any of them, go up to edit, and we blend these images in Photoshop. But instead of choosing the top option, I'm going to choose the open as layers in Photoshop. So here we are with the three images now on each of their separate layers in Photoshop. Now there are two ways of doing this. One way is to give each of these a mask and then manually brush out the masks so only the sharp part of the image is showing. Now to do that, what I'm going to quickly do is just move these images down and around so that I've now got this image here is the shot where the background is sharp, the middle one is where the midground is sharp, and the bottom one is where the foreground is sharp. Now what I can do is give each of these their own mask like that. So white reveals and black conceals. So at the moment this mask is white, so it's revealing all of this bottom layer. So if I only wanted the sharp portion of this image, which is the foreground, what I could do is I could turn that mask into a black mask, in which case it's now concealing all of that bottom layer. I could come over and make sure that I've got my brush tool selected and white, make sure I've got the mask selected, and now I could just mask in or paint in white on the mask, which is now revealing that that sharp area in the bottom. And I could do the same with the next part of the image. Again, I'll add a mask there. It's white, so I want to make that black, and now with that mask selected again, I'm going to now just paint in the midground there like that. Probably don't want that bit there quite so much. Put that there. And then finally, with my top layer selected, this is the background again. I'll give it a mask. I'll make sure that is black, and then with my brush I'll now paint in the back area. Just quickly to give you a bit of a sense of what's involved. And again, now if I zoom in, now I've got the foreground sharp, I've got the midground sharp, and this background is sharp as well. So that was quite simple and easy to do. That's a manual way of doing it. You can see that the masks on the right hand side here represent the areas in which each of those images were sharp. So that's the manual way of doing this. But there is also another way of doing it. So here we are back where I started in Photoshop with each of the images on their own layer. And now I'm going to show you the easier way to do it in Photoshop. First of all, I make sure that each of the layers are selected. I go up to Edit, and actually while I'm here, I could do an auto align layers. That just makes sure that if there was any movement, remember it was quite windy that day, if there was any movement in the camera or slight shift, this will line up all the images so they're exactly in the same position. I'm just going to pick auto for this, select OK, and we'll just let this get done there. And now with all of them aligned, I'm now going to go back up to Edit and come down to Auto Blend Layers. And this time I'm going to make sure that Stack Images is selected, Seamless Tones and Colors are selected, and also the Content Aware fill for transparent areas, which is there's just these slight bits around the edge there where the images have shifted as they aligned them. So I'll click OK and let that process. Rightio, so we're done. Now just to get rid of the marching ants around the edge here, I'll just go up to select and deselect it. And if we go back to the layers panel on the right hand side, you can see that once again for each of the images Photoshop has created a mask, and then again white is revealing the portion of that image which is sharp. And it's very similar to the way in which I manually, even though I did it quickly, brushed in each of the layers. So in this bottom one it was the foreground that was sharp, for the middle one it was the midground that was sharp, and then the third layer it was the background that was sharp. So that's pretty much what Photoshop has done as well automatically, but it's done it probably a little bit more accurately. Instead of me just brushing through with a great big thick brush, it's analysed it and worked out which bits are the sharpest of each layer and then used them. You can also see that it has created a fourth layer where it has merged the three layers into a fourth layer. So if I wanted to, I could just delete those three layers here and I'd have my final image. So to finish up here, all I need to do is select all the layers, flatten image, and then I'm ready to bring that back into Lightroom. So I'll click Save, and we can go back into Lightroom. So here we are back in Lightroom, and I've now got my image that is sharp all the way through from the foreground to the background. Just to quickly finish off, I'm just going to do a few more edits in Lightroom. So now I'm going to come down to the clarity. I'm just going to push the clarity up just a fraction, not too much. This edit is going to be just a subtle edit because I want this to be fairly natural. So the clarity up to roughly 10 there. I will push the vibrance up a little bit more. Yep, maybe 2022. That is looking pretty good. I'm going to leave the saturation. I might come back to the tone curve, but I'll jump straight into the saturation panel down here where I can just change the saturation of specific color channels. So the orange, if I just swing that back and forward, you can see it's having a fairly dramatic effect, not only in the sand here but also in the sky. So I need to be fairly careful. As I said, I'm just going for a subtle edit here, so I'm just going to push that up to 5. I I think the yellows will affect the sand as well, the sky not so much. So again, just +5 on that one. If I come down to detail, I really don't need to sharpen. You can see how sharp it is. You really just sharpen to taste. I would almost not bother sharpening it at all, and then just sharpen right at the end when I know what I'm going to use the image for, whether I'm sharpening it for putting it up on Instagram or the web, or whether I'm going to print this. Sharpening of 10 to make sure that no noise is introduced when you sharpen in the sky. Bring up the mask, make sure you hold down the option key, and you can see where that is going to take effect. I'm going to bring mine right down to there. I'm going to leave all that. Now sometimes I do have a slight vignette, but in this I'm going to leave it as 0. I'm not going to have any effect. Dehaze, I might just bring that in just a little bit, not too much. It was a little bit hazy, and so that dehaze helps just to cut through that, gives it a little bit more definition as well. So that's pretty much it. If you look at the before and after, that's what it was before I did those final edits in Lightroom, and that's what it is now. Now I could go up to tonal curve. It's got some settings here to see what a medium contrast and a strong contrast. That's probably a little bit too much. You might look like that look. So that's before and that's after. But that's pretty much how I merged the images together and edited the final image for how it looked in the video. So there you have it. As you can see, it's really easy to focus stack an image, and it can give your images that extra little punch, ensuring that they're sharp right the way through. I don't use the technique all the time, but in this situation, because of the texture in the sand, the ripples in the sand, and that simple S curve up the dune, it was a great opportunity to show you what was involved. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please help me out by giving it a thumbs up below. A big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. I've been using Squarespace for many years now, and I think it's the best website for photographers to share their portfolio of images and much more. A few months ago, I changed the look and feel of my own website. And with the large range of beautiful templates that Squarespace provide and the customization options that are available, it was such a quick and easy process. You can check out all the templates with a free 1-month trial at squarespace.com. If you like what you see after your trial, you can get 10% off your first purchase by going to squarespace.com/Andrew Marr. If you have any questions or feedback about focus stacking, then leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to you. But until next time, guys, thanks very much for watching.